No, so thanks Liz for joining, and thanks to everyone for attending an early crispy Wednesday. Yeah, it looks quite a sunny day in Vancouver, so enjoy the sunshine for next few days or weeks. So quickly, Liz, you and I have obviously known each other for, I was looking at it, maybe definitely 17, 18 years. And it's phenomenal to see your journey. You are a UBC computer science graduate. And I think you started, I'm sure, as a technical person, but then, and by the way, I have a bias towards technical CEOs. I like, no, they can deep dive into issues rather than no, just referring to Michael Porter or Jim Collins or one of those guys always. So no, I like your hands-on approach. So share a little bit about your journey, how, what made you move from technical side to business, and obviously now you're running a great successful company. So take us through your journey.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Pankaj, for hosting me. It's always fun to kind of share the story and see how we can help others with similar backgrounds see what the opportunity is in front of them. So as you said, I graduated from UBC back in well, I hardly graduated is really the story, to be honest. So I met Saeed Hassan, and we co-founded our prior business, Response Tech Networks, back at the end of 1999, and I had about 6 credits or 2 courses left to take. And at the time there was the .com boom, and I thought, what? Who needs those last two credits? And I'm going to be a multimillionaire within a few weeks driving my Lamborghini. And so I started working on it. I was on the tech side, obviously. I started building out the software there, and I think within 6 months or a year, the market crashed, and we realized we've got a long journey ahead of us. So I decided to finish my degree that summer and make sure I had something behind me. But we had a very interesting time there at Response Tech. I started from the technology side. I was actually the one and only developer in the group. Built out the product, and we built an enterprise SaaS product. So this is me out of university, kind of building that out, and over the years had the luxury of kind of growing with the business. So that was pretty amazing. And Saeed and the team around me were pretty phenomenal to support me in doing that. Opened an office and ended up opening several offices in India, in Chandigarh, and worked with Momentum. Actually, that's when I met Pankaj. So he really got me into this whole offshore development, and I fell in love. I fell in love with India. My background, maybe I'll start there, is my dad is actually East Indian from Africa. My mom is English, I was born and raised for the first part of my life in England, and then I moved actually to Africa and was raised in the Congo. And then after the revolution occurred there in the Congo, moved to Canada. And this has been my home since 1992, 93 range. So quite a bit of a diverse background. My wife is Iranian. My kids are mixed, and I've got 3 kids, and one's blonde, one's platinum blonde, and one's brown hair. And my wife and I have black hair. So we go figure. They look all like my mom. So my mom, obviously, with her English strong genes, has really come through. But I fell in love with working with India, and a big part of that is Pankaj, introducing me to that. And so set up teams there. At one point, we had over 150 people there working for us in actually in Mohali region, to be honest. So for those that know the Tri-City area there, and it was just a great time. So fast forwarding, to 2015, being there now 15 years, learned a ton. Getting the itch to kind of apply what I've done to another business, to validate the years and years that I've put into the business. And one of my friends had founded pretty much at the same time I founded Response Tech, founded Cymax. And for years we traded stories, and all the terrors that we went through and all the successes. And eventually he's like, Riz, you got to join me. We've got something going on here. Now's the right time. And said, well, you need an investment, you need this, you need that. I'm a very conservative individual. So he came back to me, he's like, how does a $30 million raise and an investment by, you know, Friend and BDC, and how does this all sound to you? I'm like, well, I told you what my requirements are, so I'm a man of my word. So no matter how hard it was for me to leave my baby, my word was more important. So I joined Cymax as the VP of Tech in 2015, and for the next year and a half, I worked really hard, kind of cleaning up the tech, stabilizing the platform, positioning it so that we could be, you know, in a position for growth and extreme scale. You know, at that point, the board and the CEO approached me and said, well, you know what, we're not doing as well as we expected financially. We've been, you know, we've been going through the burn rates a lot higher than we expected. We need a COO in place, someone to kind of go in, figure it out, and help us turn the company around. We've got a strong foundation now, technology, you know, sales, market share, etc. Now let's go turn this thing into a viable business. And they were like, what CEO experience do you have? And I said, none. And they said, okay. And I said, but of course I'm going to do it. I'm competitive by nature. You know, it's something that I could figure out. And that was another big milestone. I've never said no. It goes back to when I started developing at Response Tech. They're like, have you built any software yet? I'm like, nope. And they're like, okay, so how are you going to do it? I'm like, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. And we built a multi-million-dollar company out of it. And so I always I'll never say no to kind of any challenge, if you will. And I'll keep hitting them head on. And that's something I like to do. So within 6 months, I was able to turn the company around. We went to, you know, cash flow positive. We've been in that position for the last going on 2.5 years now. So EBITDA, you know, positive, and that's been a great turnaround. And obviously this year with all the growth in e-commerce. So maybe I can kind of take a quick step backward and tell you what Cymax really is. So Cymax is a e-commerce technology business. We focus on selling furniture and home decor. We sell on our website, cymax.com and homesquare.com. And we also sell on marketplaces. So we sell on Amazon, eBay, Walmart, House, Target, so on and so forth. And we just launched with Loblaws here in Canada. So we're really kind of getting on all the marketplaces, and we become the go-to third-party seller. So we don't ever take any inventory ourselves. We drop ship. So that's where the technology play comes in. So very strong technology foundation, and continue to go from there. So in beginning of 2019, moved into the CEO role, and has just been kind of onwards and upwards since then. And we're in a really good position. Obviously, COVID is, you know, and e-commerce is one of the glimmers of light, if you will, coming out of all of this, you know, unfortunate situation. But it's really well positioned us for future growth as well.
Yeah, actually, you know, before I forget, today, Ray Dalio, whom I admire and whom I follow, actually, it's a little bit of coincidence that, you know, he said that a lot of good leaders are, many times they don't know what the path to success is, but if you ask them to do something, they will commit to it. And as you start that journey, many times you figure out, you'll not have all the answers on day one, which is very, you know, inspiring thing. And I mean, you know, I've watched your resourcefulness, really, how to make things work is, it's pretty phenomenal. And congratulations, really. Yeah. So now all the audience is here. Let me just do some housekeeping notes. So one is, just to be on mute, please. And you can submit your questions in the chat box. Our next webinar is on October 22nd on cybersecurity with Michael Argast, who runs Cobalt. And he's a phenomenal guy, ex-Sophos, ex-Telus, and I'm engaged with that business, and we are building a phenomenal cybersecurity business there. And we are recording this session, and we'll share the recording later today. Yeah. So thanks, Rizzo. And before actually we come to, and so what are the questions I said? Generally, I ask the questions which are not on that sheet. So I'll just throw you off the. So I believe when Marcus Sprint came, I believe he is a very data-driven person, correct? And I think, so tell us a little bit more about Cymax when you joined 2015 and it is 2020 now. I believe you guys have one of the best, you are automating everything. You have a lot of focus on data. How did all this happen from a very traditional, I think it was not a great software at the time you joined. So maybe take us through the journey of what we may call digital transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a phenomenal journey. I think, to me, there's been really three kind of pivotal pieces that have really helped us transform the business. One is focus, one is our people and culture, and the third is the digital transformation, is our data focus and data-driven kind of culture that we've created in the organization. And when I first started, we were most of our website sales were coming through our websites, and those websites were driven by ad revenue. And you can imagine how much data there is behind it, obviously with the analytics, AdWords, and even deeper into conversions and the funnel management in an e-commerce website. And I think it was at that point when we realized that we needed to make a really strong, bold move towards becoming a data-driven organization, and really needed to ensure the foundation that we thought we had was actually a lot more sound, if you will. And I think we spent a lot of time making sure that we ramped that up. So we had to make sure that it was a top-down driven and sponsored initiative. So everyone in the organization has SQL Server and Management Studio installed on their computers, and we had our CFOs running SQL queries to get data from our database. And while we were transforming, we created a concept of analytics ambassadors, which were kind of sponsors for supporting people in the organization to learn whether it's SQL, and then we started implementing Power BI, making sure they understood how to use it, how to even create new reports, and so on and so forth. So every part of the organization was really tasked to make sure that they're looking at data to drive their decisions. And as you can imagine, when we started that off, there was a lot of inconsistency. So someone's looking at our gross margin from one perspective, and someone's looking at it from another, and the numbers don't match. It's like, okay, well, what's the single source of truth? Very typical problem that a lot of organizations have. So that's when we embarked on a journey to kind of create that single source of truth. Very familiar story to a lot of organizations that have big data, or a lot of data. I'm using that term loosely, and trying to figure out how to make it all work. So we created our data warehousing and started to put transformations and ETLs and all the fun things that you would expect to have happen in place, so that we could actually clean the data and cleanse it as it's coming in. And you fast forward 2 or 3 years now, and I think we've got more KPIs than we can actually manage. So we had to go through a reorganization of those itself to make sure that we map our P&L to the KPIs, which map to people's own OKRs effectively, so their own personal objectives, and mapping that throughout. And we haven't completed that journey yet, but we're well down the path, and continuing to get it stronger. And we've also recently kind of embarked on growing out and building out our finance team as well, our FP&A team, and our strategic projects team. And what they are doing is really ensuring that there's accountability that exists throughout the organization, and there's a cross-functional view of how things are moving. So we've overlaid on top of all of that transformation teams to make sure we've invested in people to make sure that what we've invested in is protected and is actually quite accurate. So that's just one aspect on the data side. I mean, there's every part of the business and the organization has really gone through that transformation operationally, as you alluded to. A lot of automation. An example of what we had is, don't quote me quite on the numbers, but we had roughly around 120 people in our call center when I took over. We dropped that down to about 30.
Wow.
And we have more than tripled our business since then.
And you're making, I heard, yeah.
Yeah. So you can kind of see what we've done. So now we've actually started ramping the call center numbers back up as we continue to see the extreme growth. And now we're going through that evolution again. It's continuous evolving of the technology to say, well, this problem 2 years ago was only 1 in 100, But today it's become 15 and 100, if you will, 15% of all the issues that we have. So those problems that never existed were never really on the top of our priority list to automate, streamline, or even change processes or related to it, or policies even. So, we continue to see these things. And, one of the things we saw, and this is working with Marcus when I first joined, is, is death by a million cuts. In a business as complex as ours, we're dealing with vendors, we're dealing with carriers, we're dealing with marketplaces, we're dealing with, LTL providers. We have so many vendors, and we're kind of the hub, if you will, that brings all of this together. So if any one of those pieces is out of line, you can see how quickly we can deteriorate our ability to be profitable. So we had hundreds of different little pieces moving. Was it returns? Was it calculations? Was it collections? Was it claims? Was it delivery on time? Was it, damage and all those types of things? Was it the marketing spend not being allocated properly, all the way up and down the funnel? And we had to tackle one by one. There wasn't one big thing that said, oh my gosh, here you'd go, done, the company turned around, so it's been a grind, and we've have an amazing team that's been behind us. And I think that's coming back to, the three things that really changed us. The digital transformation was key, but the people driving that was even more key.
Yeah. And your technical background helps a lot in this transformation?
100%. As I said at the beginning, it has to be a top-down buy-in. If it's, the CEO, COO, VP, or whatever, barking the orders and saying, go make this tech work, it's just not going to happen, right? You need to have a vision. You need to have a strategy. You need to kind of, think through what you're doing first. It's really important to understand that, because if you jump in, you're just going to end up, spaghetti. It's just going to be all over the place. And you could possibly do more harm, because you're using that data with confidence, and that data still could be misaligned or incorrect or not complete. And if you do that, then you could be making decisions that are actually going to hurt the company even more than you think you're helping, when you think you're helping.
So we follow a methodology internally called 4DX, 4 Disciplines of Execution, by the way, great book, which has leading indicators and lagging indicators. Like sales is a lagging indicator, because you can't control what it is, but what you can control is more things like funnel and some of those things. So what are the 3 or 4 key KPIs which you as CEO look almost every day? It's like or every minute or every hour on the business side and on the technology side.
Yeah, I wish I had 2 or 3. To be honest, that would be quite relaxing for me, to be honest. We've come so far that we have an hourly view of our company, a snapshot every hour that's delivered. So our entire P&L we can see effectively in real time, but it gets delivered into my inbox. And then every day we have a full snapshot and then a projection. We've gone as far now to create a process called our latest estimate. It actually tells us where we're going to end up at the end of the year, and we complete that on a weekly basis as well. So we have full line of sight where the end of the year is going to go, and we're going to extend that out to 2 and 3 years now. That's in our way. But more specifically, it's the hourly snapshot of our sales targets, what we've been doing, where we have any concerns or issues, because we have a really good monitoring and alerting system, not just from a technology perspective, but from a business perspective as well. And because we're selling hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of product on a day, we got thousands of orders going through our system. And if there's any hiccup along the way, whether it's an account being temporarily suspended or a technology issue where we've put up a release and we've forgot to change the production key, and we've got the test keys into production, and the database doesn't connect anymore. Very common. I'm sure a lot of people are smiling on this call with technical backgrounds, because it's the most common thing to happen. Those are things that will be made up very quickly. So if we go below our thresholds, we have forecasts and projections. So if we expect to do, I don't know, $100,000 of sales on Amazon, and we're only, within the in 4-hour period, and we're only at, 60, it's going to trigger an alert to the business leaders in the organization to make sure they're understanding why is that the case. And then with all of our Power BI reporting, we can tell them immediately within minutes to say, well, this vendor ran out of inventory, and that was a big one that was helping us move things forward. Don't worry, everything's good. We're on the phone with the vendor to see when their supply is going to kind of replenish. So it's really kind of all over the organization that way.
So let's move to maybe a little bit towards cloud. So I'm sure you must have been in some data center somewhere, and then you decided to move to Azure. And how did that happen? What are the pros, cons?
So when I joined Cymax, I joined in a real storm, if you will. It was a perfect storm in that sense. So my wife had just broken her foot. She was 8.5 months pregnant, due, in a couple of weeks. I started Cymax. My wife gave birth that following weekend early. I was back to work on the Monday morning. It was a Friday afternoon. I was back in the office on Monday, and we started our transformation to Azure. So we were at Rackspace, and we moved to Azure that weekend. So the following weekend. So it was quite an interesting time. We just pulled it. We just did it. We didn't overcomplicate it. We knew that we were an amazing firefighting team. There was enough planning that went into it, so we did obviously have a plan and documented project manager going through all of those details. But you know what, we said, if we kind of overcomplicate and overanalyze, we're never going to get there. So we had our team in. Everyone was motivated. It was a couple of sleepless nights, and we just kind of moved everything over. And this is before all the migration tools existed and all of those types of things. So we were doing that quite manually. And then I think it was the following week we moved our email over to Office 365 as well. So, we were what was this in glutton for punishment? So we were asking to do that, but we were so excited about the opportunity to move everything into the cloud. And to Microsoft's credit, they really supported us a lot. I had transformed my previous business to a complete Microsoft Office and suite of development tools, etc. So I've been a really big fan of Microsoft and where they've been going for years. And Microsoft supported us through that process as well. So they were always willing to give us, investment funds or support or, direction or have strategic conversations. And it's been a really good relationship. And they've done the same thing with us here at Cymax. So it really made that process a lot easier. And, I always like, as an individual, I always like to work with organizations that are moving at the same pace, if not faster than us. And I know Microsoft's been around forever, but Azure was just coming through the ranks. Yep. I did the same thing with SQL Server back in 2000, when everyone's like, why would you choose SQL Server? Oracle, like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, you need to understand software as a service. You don't need to worry about what database I'm using. Just here's my terms and conditions. If I'm down for a couple hours or I can't serve your pages in less than 3 seconds, then you give me a call and I'll give you credit. But don't challenge me on the technology, because the technology is growing. And as you saw from 2000, how nicely SQL Server, moved through the ranks as well. So I was really keen on doing the same thing with Azure, and from its infancy and moving it through, because it was also exciting, because every time they had a new release of new functionality, our team got excited as well. And keeping that excitement inside the organization, supported by Microsoft, obviously, because they're pushing it and marketing it, it made it for a real big win for us. So we're kind of not necessarily bleeding edge, but we're leading edge, and we're actually kind of keeping up with the technology transformation. And that's what keeps everyone on here. And, I'm sure there's a lot of developers on this call as well. It's what keeps us interested, right? We don't want to be, developing Visual Basic from 20 years ago or COBOL or whatever. We want, Azure DevOps. We want all of the jobs and containers, and we want all of that kind of fun stuff, because it's interesting, but it also will help them move the business forward.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and Azure has evolved quite a bit in the last 5 years. I mean, it's obviously in 2015. I think it's brave on your part to choose Azure. I mean, we are an Azure shop, but it's still 2015. I think definitely AWS was far ahead of Azure. But today, I think both are at least at the same level. If Azure is not even I'll say better because of they have that advantage of incumbency in various organizations. So now, if you knowing what you know now, if you go back to 2015, what will you do differently on your Azure digital transformation side? Yeah, I'm sure you must have experimented a lot. There must have been a lot of failures, learnings, all those. Yeah, that's fun part. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the failures for us, for sure, Pankaj, were very small in size. So there was nothing I would say in terms of strategic direction that I would change, that kind of really cost the business or we're trying to undo right now. But it was small little things that we've kind of we jumped into and we're like, oh, maybe too soon, or maybe so the API management too soon, the jobs, web jobs and everything, okay, too soon when we jumped in. And there's things that we didn't jump in too soon enough, like containers, and we were waiting to see where that would land and how that would kind of evolve. We didn't want to really disrupt too much of our development life cycle before really doing that. I think a big part of it is this concept of technical debt, and I think that always kind of catches people and bites them in the butt. Right? Yeah. It's always making sure, well, no, I need this feature, I need this feature, I need this feature. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, are you servicing your technical debt? And then you get to 3 years later, and then your architects are saying, we've got to architect the whole thing, re-architect it. And you're like, well, we don't have a couple $1 million just to go and re-architect this thing while we're running a business. And it becomes the challenge that, developers and software engineers and architects always have with the business, right? It's the triangle: time, money, and resources, right? So us as developers, we don't want that triangle. We want as much time as possible, as many resources, and go from there, right? So, but unfortunately, that's kind of part of it. And I think servicing the technical debt would be something I would be, look back at and say, no, we've got to really allocate that. I think something that ties into that is the concept, obviously, of R&D, right? So forward-looking. So we're always focused on today and tomorrow. Are we focused on the future? And R&D and the technical debt are really kind of what you've got to look for. So keeping that balance, and it doesn't have to be a massive investment. It could be 5 or 10% on each compared to the rest of your streams. But I would say that that's really a big part of where I would really like to go back to. In terms of the actual technology itself, I think we've taken it step by step. We're a very cost conscious organization. So we didn't really jump into kind of some of the tools that were going to really cost us an arm and a leg because they were in its infancy. They weren't sure quite how the pricing would work. The SQL as a service and those types of platform services. We're still using SQL instances today in our environment just because it doesn't make sense for us to do that yet. We're itching to do it. We've tested it. We've tried it in development, but we've just not moved it there because Microsoft just isn't there for us right now on that front. And that's partly because we've got really good deals going on with other programs within Microsoft. So they've got their gold partnership, they've got their EA, so there's all of these that are starting to tie together, and we can see that Microsoft is doing that quite well. So it's just a matter of time before we get there, and we're on it. But we're going through upgrade right now on our build management and DevOps tools. So we didn't use the Microsoft tools for all of that. We use things like Octopus and all of those types of things, and that's because Microsoft 3-4 years ago wasn't ready for that, in our opinion. So that's where we always want to be flexible. I've never been an organization that likes to box us into something, although I do say we are a Microsoft shop generally. I don't want to be, are you agile? Well, yeah, but it depends. Exactly. Are you a Microsoft shop? Yeah, but it depends. Our FTP services are all Amazon. Our backup is all Amazon. So we do have bits and pieces, but our core competency and our core strengths are, in those cases, Microsoft and Azure.
And I think coming to technical debt, it's like any company, some technical debt is okay, because really when you are on the leading edge, there's no way you can avoid technical debt. And many times it's good to launch a feature, even if it's done, I'll not say hard-coded, but definitely done in a bad way. So and as long as you are aware how much debt you are carrying, because like carrying financial debt in itself is not bad, as long as you know no, there's a cost attached to it, and it's part of certain overall health. So it's a little bit like cholesterol sort of thing. Okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
So actually Microsoft Christian is here on the call. So he put it on chat that no, I think he gives a lot of credit to you. He said Microsoft can only help as long as no customers are ready to change, and which I agree. If customers are not ready to move, no vendor can't can't do much. Yeah. So,
I didn't realize Christian was on the call. I wouldn't have said so many nice things about Microsoft.
So the other thing is, so suppose you have unlimited resources, correct? Suddenly you get another, say, $100 million check. And in today's market, I think getting that is not that hard. So I'm sure you guys can. So what are the 2 or 3 things you will do, or maybe one thing which you think today, if you have unlimited money and resources, you do?
Yeah, we're investing in AI and machine learning and those types of things. So again, Christian has been a big support for us. We've been growing the team. So we've got students from MyTax, we've got AI engineers now joining us, machine learning engineers. So we're playing around with a lot of these different technologies, and I think we're at a point where we're ready to start integrating them into our production. Which is really exciting. So we've been testing them out for quite some time now. We've got a pricing engine, for example. So our catalog is over 300,000 products and growing considerably. And what we do is we have a pricing engine that goes through and prices these products a lot of times in real time and a lot of cases in 15-minute increments. So if you can imagine how big the network is, we've got over 15 different channels that we sell on. So we send prices to 15 different channels, and we do 300,000 product repricing. So it's a very complex situation. And the other thing is that we're competing against, dozens of other sellers that are selling a product. So if you're on Amazon, you might see 10 or 15 sellers. So we're competing against them. And then we're trying to compete across. So if Amazon is more expensive than Walmart, what's going to happen? So are we, cannibalizing sales, or are we optimizing sales? So there's so many different dynamics to the pricing engine other than just simply saying, is it up or down, right? Should you price more or price less? And then we factor in things like damages, so the profitability of those products, the time it takes to get those products to the customer, where the warehouses are located. So we price, the seasonality. So we've taken all of that information, and in the past, we tried to make a rudimentary kind of decision tree type of algorithm, and it worked. But what we've done is fundamentally really exciting is using machine learning and AI to really tie all of these together. And that's one of the big areas that we focused on. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think we can really jump in there and do a lot more in there. We've even got Marcus in there with the data sometimes going in and saying, hey, I took a look and writing SQL queries, and that's his passion, and I love chatting with him about that. It's really exciting. And he quite often is like, oh, that's an interesting perspective. I've never looked at it from that. And then the team just kind of goes after it and very quickly is able to kind of maneuver around that. But the AI, we're doing a lot of image optimization. An example is, we get all the images of damaged products, and what we want to do is provide that information, and we do provide those images to our vendors to say, here's pictures of all the damaged products. Give us our money back because you didn't do such a good job of packaging it. But we're turning that around and saying, you know what? We found a consistency through our machine learning and AI that says it's the corner of every one of those types of products that's actually damaging. And if you put an extra 5-cent corner boarding cardboard on it, we think you're actually going to stop that damage. And guess what? That helps everyone. That helps us, and that helps the vendor. And all of a sudden they're saying, well, you guys are really adding value to us. So we're not just selling the product, we're actually helping their business. And that's been a big part of the success of getting that data. We are transparent with our vendors. And that's just one of many examples of where AI, machine learning are helping us work with our vendors and provide more value to them.
So if there are any questions, please feel free to put on the chat. We already have some questions which I'm trying to cover here. So we have many people on the call who are either starting their digital journey or they are in middle of it. So what will be your 2 or 3 top recommendations or pieces of advice to them? And if it's more on cloud, DevOps, data AI, app and infra, those type of things, yeah?
Absolutely. I think number one is don't fear it, right? Don't be scared of it. You're always going to come across challenges or problems, but don't be scared to jump in and actually do it. Obviously, reduce as much of the risk as possible by having the conversations and understanding kind of what are the challenges that could occur. But don't get too scared to jump into it. You'll be surprised. So much of it is in your head. I've learned that in my own job now as a CEO so many times that the major blocker is actually in your own head. And so just jump into it. Do a proof of concept, do a prototype. If you're a developer, that's the best way to get the team excited and motivated by it. If you're a manager, it's the best way to get buy-in from senior management to say, here's what it could look like. Let them touch and feel an example. I think the flip side of it, though, is be careful not to jump too quickly to the final solution. What I found sometimes is you want to see something, you want to feel something, you want to look at it and see, oh, that's cool, it's there. But the underlying foundational elements are not strong enough. And I kind of alluded that earlier as its impact to data and things like that. Just make sure that it's strong. So don't go and implement something without having a monitoring and alerting requirement as part of that. So if you've got a new job or a new API integration, make sure you've got that complete, because as a developer, you're looking at it and saying, yeah, I've done my job, but there's so much more that you need to do. Your DevOps guys, your security guys, all of these people are going to come to you after the fact and say, well, what happened? And unless you're a really large or sophisticated organization where you've got all of these resources coming to the table in a cross-functional form, the smaller startup companies are really not going to see that. So that could be kind of part of the challenge as well. And then stay focused. There's going to be all these bells and whistles, and you're going to go down all these rabbit holes when you're researching something, right? Like you'll be like, oh, and then I could do this. Oh, I can do that. Just stay focused, target, define your goal and your objective and stay very focused to that and get the team motivated and organized around that. Otherwise, again, it becomes kind of disjointed and disorganized, and you'll end up hurting yourself, a year or two from now. It'll just be disjointed and won't really succeed.
Yeah. So one question more on, so in technology team, how big is your technology team, and what type of people generally who you think is an ideal technology team member? And I know it's a very general type of question, but you look more for inquisitiveness or any of those things, or when you do the hiring, what do you look for?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got our team. We've got developers and QA and DevOps and DBAs and all the fun stuff here in Vancouver, but we've also got teams in India and actually in the Ukraine as well. Some of them in development, some of them in support, some of them in QA, etc. So I like to have a pretty broad team, to be honest. I think, just from my past and doing a lot of the offshoring, again, Pankaj gave me that virus and I've had it ever since. So, I think it's phenomenal to have teams that are from different areas of the world. I think you get more creativity if it works well. You need to make sure your communication and your processes are tight enough to manage it. But I think it's a lot more fun because it gets exciting for the developers to kind of see different perspectives and different education impacts coming through. So you're educated in different ways in different countries, and you can see how that kind of comes together and where the strengths and weaknesses of each region really are. We're always looking for more people. We're looking for people that are motivated and driven and actually can buy into the vision, because a big part of what I spend my time doing with the dev team these days, or just in general, the IT team, is talking to them about the future, about what the company wants to do and where the company wants to go. Because the more I can spend them time there doing that, I know they have the ability to think at a business level rather than dictating requirements saying, go build this button that does this. It's really allowing them to understand what we're trying to accomplish as a business. Where are we trying to go? And I like it when people actually get excited about learning that. So to me, that's a big piece. And you mentioned inquisitive and things like that. Absolutely, right? Asking the questions, asking, how can I make the business better? We tried to do hackathons. We haven't done one in a while, but we had great success in a previous hackathon that we done. And it's something we want to continue to do because it promotes the fun and the energy and the excitement. We've got a picture on our wall of the map of the world, and it's got pins to every one of our employees. The pin is actually where they were born. And interesting enough, it's such a diverse group.
Yep.
And I think that's a big part of what we're looking to do. We want to continue to diversify and have people from all over the world working with us, working for us, and helping us make the business forward. In terms of skill sets, that's a lot of times that's secondary to me, to be honest. Fit, culture, personality, and all those things, enthusiasm and excitement and energy and, dedication and all those things are so much more important because there's skills, there's so many tools out there, and there's so much support from, like, in this case, like Microsoft, to support developers to get that training and education. It's phenomenal. So there's always a reason and ability to upskill, whether it's through the company or through the individual. But it's really important at the personality level, from my perspective.
So one question which has come, and maybe that might be actually our last question as we have only a minute left. So if someone has to move, say, from being a technology person like you, who starts career as a technology person and who wants to be on the business side and hopefully one day be the CEO or entrepreneur, etc., what is your advice? How should they make that transition?
I think the first step, obviously, was into kind of management and junior management or being a team lead. For me, I've always had a passion to lead. I coach men's soccer team. I've done that for 20 years in Vancouver in one of the biggest leagues they've got here. I've always loved to manage people. And it's not always everyone's cup of tea, if you will, right? So, there's nothing wrong with not going into leadership. But for those that do, it's really about, doing your job and doing your job well. I don't like politics in organizations, so I cut that out. So if there's someone trying to showboat or trying to, force themselves into the eyes of upper management and things like that, generally that's not how I've worked. But that's because I've gone out of my way to make sure I connect with as many people in the organization to recognize who's coming up through the organization. And I spend a lot of time and commitment to do that. In our company here at Cymax, if you look at my, senior management, all my directors, most of them started as developers, call center people, marketing, junior marketing analysts, or whatever it may be. And they're all in those senior leadership roles in my organization. And I would never give them up for 1 second because their understanding of the business, but their drive, their commitment. And that's because and it's not just me, it's the people around me. We've recognized their potential. And, when you're in the right organization, you will be recognized. If you're not in the right organization, then that's going to be a challenge for you to move anyway. And you got to question yourself if that's where you want to go. But back to kind of the management component, it's, be good at delivering on time, doing the things you do yourself, correct, like your own deliverables perfectly, hit your own KPIs, be good at project management. Project management and organizational skills is really a big part of it because people want to depend on you, right? So when I'm looking for a manager, I want to depend on them. I don't want information to pull. I don't want to pull information from them. I want them to push updates to me. Say, hey, Riz, you mentioned this last week. This is what I did. And it's like, well, I didn't really expect you to do that, but thanks for the update. Great. And I love that you moved it forward because you're going out of your way, not just to satisfy me, but you're going out of your way to make sure that you're moving the company forward.
No, great. Yeah. No, so I think we are 2 minutes past 9:45. So thanks a lot, Riz. Really very, very informative, very inspiring, and thanks a lot and congratulations and all the best wishes. You are furniture is not the easiest business to do. And with all the Amazon and all the other players, Walmart, I'm sure your hands are more than full with challenges and excitement. Yeah, very, very, very exciting. Thanks a lot. And just to summarize, I think our next event is on October 22nd with Michael Argast on cybersecurity. Please feel free to join. And otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And again, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Pankaj.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.